everyone. Today's program is Breakfast on the Go. I have Karen Richey from Marshall County. She's the Health and Human Science educator there with me today to present to you this Breakfast on the Go program.
It's always helpful if you start out with knowing what you're going to put on your plate.
Yes. So how to build a balanced breakfast. So you're going to want to start with the basics. So you want to include all 5 food groups in all of your meals, not just at breakfast. So we want to focus on fruits, grains, dairy, protein, and vegetables. So we want to get something in each of those categories on our plates. And as you can see, the plate is divided in half. So the fruits and vegetables should take up one side of your plate and the grains and protein the other side. A lot of the times we have a bigger portion of protein typically on our plate than we do anything else. So we really need to divide that plate up.
So when you look at that, again, balancing breakfast is just as important as any other meal. So when you think about breakfast, you really have to think about what I'm going to put on in regards to maybe protein, because protein is extremely important. So when looking at breakfast, you have to think about proteins, you have to think about carbohydrates as well as lipids. And lipids we're going to refer to as fats. So think about that and think about combination of foods that provide at least 2 of those macronutrients. So we're going to talk about each one of these. We're going to talk about proteins, we're going to talk about carbohydrates, and we're going to talk about fats. So proteins are extremely important, and basically they're the most important nutrient by staying full. And what I mean, they last longer in your system throughout the day. So you want to think about breakfast is important because it's like when a fire goes out, you need to put a stick on it, or the fire does go out. So it's kind of like fueling your body with protein. You've been probably a night meal, maybe about 6 o'clock at night, and then you don't eat anything all night until the next morning. You need that protein because it gives you that feeling of satisfaction, and it will help you focus and feel more not distracted throughout the day. And that's why even when kids are taking tests, we always say make sure they have breakfast and make sure that you include protein. So you can incorporate protein in several different ways. I like to use Greek yogurt because Greek yogurt has a higher concentration of or proportion of protein than just regular yogurt. But you can also think about eggs. Milk is going to be high in protein, cottage cheese, nuts, and even nut butters. So the next one is fats or lipids that we refer to, and you want to make sure that you use healthy fats and oils. Basically, that would include the omega-3 fatty acids, and this basically contributes to brain health and can also support your heart health. So again, these are the kinds of fats, and you can see here on the slide, those are the things that you might think about. I want to point out the avocado. This is really trendy to have avocado toast. So you might have a slice of toast and then maybe a fried egg and then put a slice of avocado on top. And again, you see virgin oil. So again, olive oil is extremely important as well. And you can always throw in some flaxseed in your breakfast food as well. So carbohydrates are extremely important as well. This is one of the macronutrients that we hear a lot about. And there are 2 different kinds of carbohydrates. There's complex carbohydrates and there are simple carbohydrates. And we want to make sure that you get the complex carbohydrates, and those are going to be whole grains. So when you think about whole grains, they contain a lot of vitamins as well as a lot of minerals. And again, this helps with magnesium, vitamin B, and also iron. So that's why we want to use the complex carbohydrates because, again, they have fiber, and that helps slow down the breakdown of the starches. And again, it lasts longer in the system. So some of the things that you can see here on the slide in that picture, you want to include would be fruits and 100% fruit juices, maybe even some sweet potatoes, raisins, whole grain bread. And I think a lot of times children don't like whole grain bread But you can buy white bread that is whole grain, and that's sometimes a better substitute for them. So we talked a little bit about the carbohydrates and dietary fiber, and that's extremely important because fiber includes the parts of the plant that the body can't digest or absorb, and this makes it different from nutrients such as fats, proteins, and other carbohydrates, including starches and sugars. And those are the simple carbohydrates, so to speak. So there are two kinds of fiber, one being soluble fiber, and that dissolves in water and forms a gel-like material that slows down the digestion. And this can help lower your cholesterol, which is a real thumbs up, so to speak. Then you have the insoluble kind of fiber, and that does not dissolve in water. And basically, it supports the movement of material through the digestive system. And so it helps you to be regular, so to speak. And if you're constipated, you want to make sure you got insoluble fiber. So what are we looking at? We're looking at whole wheat. We're looking at wheat bran, nuts, maybe some seeds, and even potatoes that are all high in fiber. So Grandma always said, eat your greens. Grandma always said, eat lots of fiber. So here's a chart, and I don't know how well you can see this up close, but the fact is, as you can see, this is kind of gives you a understanding of how fiber basically will go through the system. So the first column is indicating soluble fiber, and the second column is insoluble fiber. And really, the thing about it is it helps to slow down and it helps to make sure that things go through, as we discussed before. So what are we going to use for dietary fiber when it comes to breakfast? Again, breakfast cereals with at least 5 grams or more fiber is a serving. So you want to opt out for cereals that have like whole grain. If you're thinking about bran flakes, or fiber in their name, or add a few tablespoons of wheat bran. You can buy that separate in the grocery store and add that. And that hasn't been processed to your favorite cereal, so you might want to add some things like that on. The benefits of fiber you can see here on the slide, and they can help manage your blood sugar. So again, this is a good thing if you happen to be diabetic. So you want lots of fiber because it's going to bulk up the food, so it stays longer in your system, and again, it will keep you feeling full longer. It also helps lower your cholesterol, and it helps manage your blood pressure and inflammation. So if you're adding fiber, it's going to you want to add it slowly to your diet because it can be kind of a drastic change if you add too much to consume. You also want to make sure you're drinking plenty of water when you are consuming fiber because it works best when it absorbs water. So with that, there are other things, but we wanted to make sure that you knew about proteins and carbohydrates, and so with that, and fats. And so with that, I think there's lots of options out there. So you want to talk about some of them?
Yes. So we're going to talk about some grab and go breakfast ideas that you can implement in your life. So some grab and go items to keep on hand would be like cheese sticks. So maybe string cheese, have a few of those around that you can implement and add into your breakfast. Easy to add those. Greek yogurt, like Karen had suggested, look at that Greek yogurt instead of those other yogurts that are out there. Again, because they have more of those nutrients that we need. Whole fruits, so your apples, bananas, things like that, you can implement those. Blueberries, that's a great one to have. Trail mixes, individual packed rice cereals, granola or protein bars. When you're looking at that, just make sure you're looking at how much protein is actually in it, as well as how much sugar is in there, because sometimes, no offense, they add in extra things to those. So you might be consuming a lot of sugars. So protein shakes and smoothies, we'll look at that a little more here in a minute. But make sure to take into consideration high protein, high fiber. Make sure you're looking at that nutrition label for lower sugar amounts in there. Make sure you're looking for complex carbs options when you make that grocery list. Again, I can't stress enough, make sure you're reading that nutritional label. so you can see how much sugar is in there, because sometimes we put a lot of sugar in those easy grab and go items in the morning.
Yeah, you talked about, this is plain yogurt, and I think
Yes.
that irregardless if you're buying Greek yogurt or the other, buy plain and add your fruit to it, because if you're buying fruit flavored yogurts, you'll well know that at the bottom of the container is like where the fruit is, and there's kind of a syrupy solution mixture with that. That's all sugar.
Yeah.
And so it's added sugar. So buy plain, and that way you get all the good part as far as those nutrients we were talking about.
And it would be really easy to buy that plain Greek yogurt or the other type of yogurt. You can buy that and then add in, get some blueberries that are frozen blueberries. If it's out of season, add those to it, or even frozen strawberries. You could cut up a banana in it, peaches, cherries, cranberries, anything like that you could add to it. You could even add some maybe granola to it, just to give it some additional flavor for you.
If you don't have those things around, I like just to sprinkle it with cinnamon. And cinnamon would give you enough flavor as well. So there are some other grab and goes out there. You want to talk about them?
Yeah, so Nature Valley, if you look at that again, it has the real fruit in it. Look at the front of the packaging, look what it says. View how much protein is contained in each one of them. You have like Kind breakfast protein bars. It talks about how many grams of fiber are in them, such as the value pack bars at the bottom. And then there's Kind bars. So they give you on that nutrition label things to look at. You want to look on that nutrition label like we have here for the yogurt. Look how many calories you're intaking, but not just focus on that. Focus on the fats. Is it saturated fats that how many saturated fats are we taking in? Trans fats, cholesterol, the sodium is a very big one because they add a lot of sodium to processing. Total carbohydrates, your fibers, like Karen discussed, and your total sugars, as well as your protein. So make sure to read that nutrition label. Look for those ones that say that they have the actual fruits in there to that diet. So anything like that, the nuts will help with the fiber as well as more protein. So all benefits for you.
So this kind of gives you a comparison of nutrients with Greek yogurt versus regular yogurt. And if you look at this slide, you can see that there is a difference in calories and then the carbs as well. And that carbs in regular yogurt is probably coming from more sugar, okay, than that, because you'll see that the protein is extremely high in basically your Greek yogurt, and it is lower in sugar compared to your regular yogurt. So again, a plus for buying the Greek yogurt. Also, you'll see that both of them have a large amount of calcium, and the sodium is a little bit different, but the biggest thing is the amount of protein in Greek yogurt versus regular, and the amount of sugar that is in regular yogurt versus Greek yogurt. So I think you got, like you said, look at the label and then think about what's going to be your best choice.
Just don't focus on the calories, because a lot of times we look at it and we're looking at the calories, but you really have to look at the others. It's important, like Karen said.
That's right. So we talked a little bit about protein shakes, and I think that's something that we're starting to see more and more about, especially if you're doing smoothies.
Yes.
So you want to talk about that a little bit?
So when you're considering protein shakes and protein powders, so those protein shakes, they can help get a lot of protein in your diet to get you started for the day. But there are some things to look out for when you're selecting a pre-made protein shake or adding protein powders to your smoothie. So you want to look at that calorie content again, but you also want to really focus in on those sugars, because there's a great difference in amount of sugars that they're adding. Look at flavor, compare the cost. Some are more expensive than others. Are they using a plant-based protein or an animal-based protein? Other nutritional content, if there's allergies in there, we've had that discussion and had that program before. See if there's any peanut or tree allergens in there. So look at that, and look at the risk and dangers associated with the different protein powders out there.
So let's little key really into some of these concepts that you were talking about that are in protein shakes. And again, the first one is the calorie and sugar content, because some of these shakes or powders are considered meal replacements and are higher in calories. And some powders can actually turn milk into a drink with over 1,200 calories. So, it's great to say I took a protein shake, but you got to look at what's in the content of it and how much calories that you're getting. Some of those shakes also can have a lot of added sugars per serving, as much as 23 grams per scoop. And others will be labeled as low sugar or carb. So again, read the label, know what you're putting in there. You may be getting protein, but you're also getting lots and lots of sugar. And the cost factor, these items can be very costly per serving. But if you buy on Amazon, which is the #1 best-selling protein powder for just over $35, you're basically paying about $1.25 for a single serving of protein. So that's not too bad, really. There's also a difference between plant proteins and animal or animal-based, which would be whey proteins. And some popular examples are whey, casein, and soy. So that will again give you a higher concentration of protein. Another nutritional content is that these powders and shakes may include other ingredients such as artificial flavoring, thickeners, as well as vitamins and minerals. Again, read the label. And this is Greek yogurt. We don't have powder in front of us, but again, you definitely have to do that. As we look at this, you did talk about allergies, and you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So someone like myself that has a lot of food allergies, you have to really read that label to see what's contained in there. So protein shakes and powders contain a variety of food allergies. So it could have soy, dairy products, egg, pea, rice. It could have nuts, tree nuts in there. So make sure you're reading that label, especially if you have any allergies or anyone in your family does. You also need to know about the risks and dangers of using a protein powder. So FDA leaves it up to the manufacturers to evaluate the safety and labeling of their products. So it's not regulated. So there's no way to know for sure how much is in that protein powder or what's in that protein powder. It's not, again, regulated by FDA. So some powder shakes contain much more than the recommended amount of protein that we need per day. Again, it might have, like Karen said, a lot of calories in it and is supposed to replace a meal for you. Some of them can cause digestive issues. Some are higher in sugars and calories, like Karen discussed. And new studies have recently found that many protein powders contain heavy metals, BPA, pesticides, or other contaminants that were linked with cancer or other health conditions. So again, make sure you're doing your research, reading those labels, and really making a good decision before you start implementing that in your regular diet.
Yeah, because I really think there are other options out there, and I think you have to think about, are they worth it, so to speak? So can you get some similar protein from Whole Foods? Absolutely. And so we have a list here, yogurt, milk, cheese, your beans and lentils, some fish, poultry, eggs, and lean meats. Absolutely. And you have to kind of think how creatively or what time factor that you have to either purchase those or make them. And again, you have to think about it. Is it cost or is it convenience that you're after? And if you struggle getting your protein in, this may be worth looking into to help meet your dietary intake, is to really think about breakfast on the go. What can I do? Well, you want to aim for the recommended daily allowance for protein, which is 46 grams per day for women and 56 grams per day for men. So what does that mean? Maybe it's an egg for breakfast, which would be 6 grams of protein. Maybe it's 6 ounces of plain yogurt at lunch, which is 18 grams, going back to my favorite Greek yogurt here. Or it could be a handful of nuts for a snack, another 4 to 7 grams. And then also making sure you have a cup of milk, which is again 8 grams, and 2 ounces of cooked chicken for dinner, another 14 grams. So you can see in a day's time, you can get enough protein. It may not be all at one meal, but the fact of the matter is you're getting the recommended daily allowances within the day. So you might ask, what's the health reasons to use protein shakes and powders, such as recovering from maybe a serious condition or a procedure? And so your doctor may say you need to have a high concentration of protein and we want you to take this. Just go back to the label again, because remember how much sugar was in some of those. So we've got some ideas as far as recipes and what you can think about how you can include breakfast on the go. So the first one, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So it's avocado toast with eggs. So you have the instructions, and we're going to give these as handouts also to you that you can print out, just some recipes. So avocado toast, what you need 2 slices of 100% whole grain toast, a half of an avocado, 2 eggs, hard boiled, and then salt and pepper to taste. So the instructions are pretty simple, pretty quick. You toast your toast and get those ready. Then you slice that avocado in half into thin slices and spread that on the toast. And then sprinkle a little salt and pepper on that. And then go ahead and top that with your hard-boiled egg. Or maybe it's a different type of egg that you have, an over easy egg that you did.
Yeah.
Any type of egg.
In the breakfast, you may just want to put your over easy egg on there like that. Exactly. The next one is overnight oats, and that's real popular, especially if you got kids and you got to get ready. You can do it overnight, and that is basically what I have here is overnight oats. It's it's really thick rolled oats for making overnight oat recipes. And again, this can be by you combine all the ingredients, and those ingredients would be a 1/3 cup of old-fashioned oats. This happens to be overnight. Old-fashioned oats is the same thing as overnight oats. So don't get caught up on paying more for this container when you can get old-fashioned oats. Is the same thing. I think that was I bought this for a demonstration just to show that it's interchangeable, so to speak. And you probably will pay more for this than you would the old-fashioned oats. But again, a 1/3 cup of that, a 1/3 cup of unsweetened milk or a milk alternative. If you don't like milk, you can use almond milk, soy milk, those kinds of things. And then also a 1/3 cup of fruit, which can be either fresh or frozen. And again, you might mix in some nuts or some seeds. I like to add in some cinnamon or chai seeds to give it more flavor. And so you combine all those ingredients in a sealable container and place it in the refrigerator overnight. And the next morning, you literally do eat it cold, and kids love it. So I think that's a real quick, easy, especially if you're running short on time for breakfast for kids or adults.
Yes. So the next one's apples and cinnamon cottage cheese. So for this, what you need for the ingredients is a 1/2 cup of 2% cottage cheese, a 1/2 of an apple that's chopped up, 1 tablespoon of walnuts chopped. If you have a nut allergy, again, leave that out. A tablespoon of honey and a teaspoon of cinnamon. So you're going to combine all those ingredients and just you enjoy it right away. Or if you would like, you could refrigerate it up to 3 days in your refrigerator.
Another quick breakfast on the go is basically quick and easy breakfast burritos. And again, those would include some eggs, some low-fat milk, peppers, 2 whole wheat tortillas, again, some salsa, maybe about 4 tablespoons, and maybe 4 tablespoons of black olives sliced. Give you, and if you don't like the olives, you wouldn't have to. You could put peppers in there if you want, green, yellow, red, whatever you want. So you're basically going to spray a microwave safe dish with nonstick cooking spray. Always wash your hands with soap and water before you ever do anything in the kitchen, first of all. And then crack that egg and place it into a mixing bowl. You're going to add that milk and pepper to the eggs and stir well. And then basically pour that mixture into the microwave safe dish. Cover and microwave on high for about 4 minutes. And then cook those eggs until internal temperature degrees is 160. That way we know they're safe. Okay. And you can also then remove the cover from that dish when you take them out of the microwave. Be careful, they're still going to be very hot. And take a fork and break them into bite-sized pieces. And then add about a 1/2 cup of that mixture to the middle of a tortilla. And you can put those 2 tablespoons of salsa and a couple tablespoons of black olives. Maybe you don't like the olives, you could use the peppers on there. So again, sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah.
You have that for lunch.
Yes.
You wouldn't have to have that for breakfast. So another good recipe.
Another recipe we have is the breakfast parfaits. So for this, you can add for the ingredients 2 cups of canned fruit juice, diced or crushed, or fresh fruit. I would say I would suggest using fresh fruit. That's always the best. Frozen's next, followed by the can. In all honesty, the fresh fruit, you're not getting as much of the sugars and you're getting them naturally. Whereas with the canned, sometimes they're adding sugars to that. So really watch that sugar intake. Then you'll add 2 bananas peeled and sliced into discs, a cup of strawberries sliced, 1.5 cups of your low fat, plain vanilla yogurt. Again, the Greek yogurt would be best. It gives you more of that protein. And then a 1/2 cup of granola. So again, it's pretty easy for this. You're gonna wash your hands, drain the liquid if you're using canned fruit. If you're using fresh fruit, maybe wash that fruit off before using it. Get that so that it's clean. And then in glasses or small bowls, you're gonna layer the canned fruit or the fresh fruit, sliced bananas, berries, then spread your yogurt over and then sprinkle the top of it with some granola. And it's just a nice, easy, healthy breakfast to have also.
And these I even make the night before. And so instead of using the fresh fruit, because it may just, it don't hold up its freshness quite as much, because a lot of times, because it's going to be overnight, I'll use the craisins. And so I like them as well. Again, but you could use fresh fruit by all means. And so I use craisins, bananas, and so any kind of fruit at the bottom, so to speak. And then I like the oats and honey. And it gives me natural sugar, but it's still sugar, but it gives me a little sweetness that way. So again, these are things that you can think about and even make them the night before. So how can you keep your meal prep fast, but also consider healthier options? I think you just got to select recipes ahead of time that have very few ingredients. And that's why, you know, the overnight oats, the yogurt parfaits, the toast with bacon, or not bacon, with avocado and an egg. But you also need to consider the recipes that include at least 2 of those macronutrients that we talked about: proteins, carbs, and lipids or fats. So again, overnight, if you can prep them, and that way you don't have to worry about early in the morning to do something, you can grab and go literally. And then also in reusable individual size containers to keep the things simple. A lot of times I wash out the yogurt containers that are like the 8 ounce, and I will make my parfaits in them, and that way it's ready to go. But I buy this and then break it down into those smaller pieces. Again, stick to food options that you and your families already enjoy. I know this is kind of mixed emotion in regards to the overnight oats. I've got one family member that does not care for it. They will eat hot oatmeal, but they don't like the cold overnight. It's just a different flavor. So don't get carried away until you really try some of these things in regards to what your family likes and not. Okay, so I think you have lots to consider, but also don't ever forget that food safety and storage options. Again, if you're going to buy things like this and you're going to take them to work or for breakfast, make sure you take it with an ice pack in a cooler, because again, they're dairy products, they got to be refrigerated.
Yes.
Okay. So anything else that you want to add? Oh, sorry. Check out these options and where you can find more. Go ahead.
All right. So there is one more slide. So some recipe websites that you can check out. We have them listed there. Go on to those. They have great ideas just to give you some menu ideas, recipes that you can implement in your everyday life to make it easier to have a nice breakfast that's healthy and nutritious, but also meets those dietary restrictions, and we're not getting all the sugars, and we're still getting macronutrients, our protein, our dairy, our fresh fruits, and our vegetables.
And your complex carbohydrates, which is fiber.
Yes, yes. So we want to make sure we get all those implemented in there. These recipes have that for you. So thank you very much for attending this program. Again, this one is worth 1 point in your health and wellness program. Don't forget to complete the Qualtrics at the end of the program so that we can get you that point. Thank you.